it's like to be an apprentice at KPFA, you know.
And then we hear your voice.
Right,
What
and then you
was
hear
that?
her, and then by the
Oh.
time you hear me again, you're not gonna remember what it sounds, you know, like you're not gonna notice, someone is not gonna notice fine differences from 2 minutes ago. But if you hear them right together, then they might notice it'll have a little seam, so that's like a way around that, you know, so that's like a good device. All right, let's listen to one more little thing and then we'll do something else. Well, then we'll listen to something else. What? Oh. All right, that didn't work. Oh.
Also, NPR has really created the style.
You know, audio.
Sorry. NPR is what?
Created this style of what we think of as radio now in terms of it's all pre-recorded and highly edited, which is not the case in other countries either, but also that it's very short little clips, you know, no more than 2 minutes, and also the voice, like you were talking about the voice, that's an NPR voice. So you're right, you won't hear a lot of accents on NPR.
Unless they're British, yeah.
Unless they're British.
But, I mean, I was once
Well,
told
there's
that
that
no
TV
one
USA.
should talk for
Yeah.
more than 45 seconds, but I don't really think that's right. I feel like if you can't listen to somebody for more than 45 seconds, maybe they shouldn't be on. I don't know. It's different. That was a news person.
You know, audio. Teaches in the business school at Dartmouth, and he researches something that we took up in an episode of our show a couple weeks ago. He researches the question, how do entrepreneurs get creative? And at some point he noticed that his students and many of his colleagues actually have an opinion about this. They believe entrepreneurs make themselves. You know, you head off on your own, you write a business plan, you start in your own garage. And the garage, by the way, is not a metaphorical garage. It is a garage, a literal garage. Hewlett-Packard started it in a garage. Apple Computer had a garage. Disney, a toy company. The Whammo toy company.
It is about big dreams and humble beginnings and success in the face of adversity and doubters. And also the idea that regardless of who you are, regardless of how humble your beginnings are, you can turn something into an immense success story if you work hard. And that was the point in time in which I got interested in the story of the garage as a myth.
A garage is a place of possibilities. It's a place where things can get invented. And a place where entrepreneurs begin.
This is from a promotional video that Hewlett-Packard put together after it spent millions to buy and restore the original garage where its two founders started what is now the largest technology firm in the world.
In 1938, in a garage in Palo Alto, California, Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard set to work to start a new company. They had a few hand-operated punches, a used Sears Roebuck drill press that had just made the trip west in the back of one of their cars, and they had a rented flat with a garage.
Professor Adia doesn't argue with any of this, but he says that when you ask actual entrepreneurs, and this is true in survey after survey, you find that most of them began not by going off into their garage, but by working for somebody else, making contacts, running the business.
So this is a very robust finding, which tells us that actually if you want to become an entrepreneur, the obvious thing to do is to first go get a job in an industry you're interested in and learn, and then eventually later try to create a company.
Even Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard weren't exactly outsiders. They studied electrical engineering at MIT and Stanford. Packard worked at General Electric. A former professor of theirs from Stanford gave them leads and hooked them up, for example, with a firm called Lytton Engineering, who let them use equipment that they didn't know themselves yet. Just as, decades later, the founders of Apple Computer, 21-year-old Steve Jobs was already working at Atari, and 25-year-old Steve Wozniak was at Hewlett-Packard when they started Apple in Jobs' garage.
And for example, because of Steve Jobs, he benefited greatly from the support that he got from the Atari people, because they introduced him to investors.
You know, Adia, as Fred mentions, garage entrepreneurs or anything like it in other countries. They didn't come up with much. He says it seemed to be a very American idea, very close to other American ideas about opportunity for everybody. The Apple and Hewlett-Packard garages have now become such a part of Silicon Valley myth that it's made other tech companies want their own stories like it. Google, for example, they did not start in a garage. The founders began working on their search engine in 1996 when they were at Stanford. They didn't actually move into a garage until 1998. They already had investors, and they were just in the garage for 5 months. But in 2006, Google bought the garage as a company landmark.
It's like no one wants to hear the story of the rich, well-connected guys who meet up at the Marriott conference room to hatch a business plan. You know, there's no romance in that.
Dan Heath has written about these origin stories in Fast Company magazine. He says that one way to measure just how appealing these stories are is to count all the ones that get quoted widely, even though they aren't remotely true. For instance, when eBay began, a story circulated that its founder created the company so his fiancée could buy and collect Pez dispensers more easily. Not true. One of the creators of YouTube used to claim that the idea for the business came after a dinner party in 2005, where two of the company's masterminds, Chad Hurley and Steve Chin, shot some video and then tried to post it online and found out just how hard that was back then.
Now, that is at a minimum an exaggerated tale. In fact, there's a third founder of YouTube who claims the dinner party never happened, and Steve Chin later admitted in Time magazine that the dinner party was embellished to provide a better founding myth. And I do want to say that you know, while it feels like a little bit of a letdown to realize that this dinner party story is not, you know, the whole truth, I feel like it's a little bit unfair for us to expect more of them than the creation of YouTube. I mean, here's this incredible site, and in some sense, that's not enough for us. Like, we want YouTube to have emerged from some kind of, you know, everyday experience. It's like it's not enough to have the value of their work. We also want there to be a really compelling story that started it.
Now, in the article that you wrote for Fast Company, you point out that our attachment to these kinds of mythic creation stories is so strong that we have even exaggerated the Christopher Columbus story.
Well, Christopher Columbus, as we all know, wanted to prove that he could reach India by sailing west. But no one believed his crazy theory that the earth was round. And in fact, his own sailors en route were terrified that they were about to fall over the edge of the earth, and they almost mutinied. So there's a guy named James Lowen, a professor at the University of Vermont, who has pointed out that virtually every element of the story is false. That in fact, we still don't really know.
So, I mean, I'm gonna stop it there, but one of the things I wanted to point out, I mean, let me just say, you know, this is obviously, it's a particular style, a lot of people like it, I'm sure there's people who don't like it. This American Life's sort of the, you know, I don't know, the gold standard for, you know, writing scripts, writing radio that people like to listen to. But one of the things I wanted to point out about this one, and it's a little unusual even for them, is it has been 6 minutes almost, and he hasn't told you, he hasn't said, This American Life, I'm Ira Glass. Yeah. He hasn't said what, you're getting the sense of what the show was about, but he didn't say, you know, like it's a very long time. So if somebody said, you know, does the script always have to be in the beginning? Well, I would normally say yes, but they just plunge right in. And, you know, I think that in this case, I mean, this was not my favorite show in terms of it's not the subject that I'm most interested in, but I think they do a great job of getting you to keep listening, you know, and that's like basically what you want your script to do is get someone to keep listening. So, yeah.
That's a podcast, right? No,
Well, it's on the radio.
It's on the radio.
You can get it as a podcast, and probably maybe the majority of people do, but it is on the radio. Yeah.
So they read it like as though they're just saying it? Is that, they've already scripted this?
Yeah, I mean,
As
And
is-
just
as is
pretending
Rachel
that they're
Maddow.
speaking it?
yeah, and I also wanted to point out that note at the top, which I think is really important. You know, that their scripts are online. You can get all their scripts online, which is actually really great. But they want you to listen to, like, you know, it's really not written to be read, it's written to be heard. And, you know, I just think everything you ever do for radio, just think, this is written to be heard. You know, and so if it's not listenable, it can be brilliant writing, but
Would you say this is a different genre of radio though? Because it's more like, I see it more like a dramatic,
yeah.
like a documentary, like
I
a
mean-
real documentary just
Right.
in radio.
I mean, one of the things that's interesting
because
is
of the
like,
music and the.
people will often say, oh, you know, This American Life is so great, you should do more pieces like that. You know how long they work on a
Yeah.
piece?
An hour.
Every
An hour
piece
per
gets
minute.
worked on for 4 to
I'm sure.
5 months by a team of people, and they usually have 3 or 4 pieces per show. So when people say that to me, I'm like, yeah, I could do that, and then I would have a show every 4.5 years, and we would have a lot of dead air. But when it aired, it would be really great, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, it's a really different style. I mean, it's much more layered. But you know, we have done features every now and then, and especially because some of you weren't here when I was saying that, I got all this heat on Facebook today because Leslie Feinberg died. Do people know who that is? So
No.
she wrote a book called Stone Butch Blues. She was one of the really early, one of the first really outspoken trans activists. Also a revolutionary communist. I mean, this is my favorite thing she said. Apparently her last words were, I want to be remembered as a revolutionary communist. She was a member of Workers' World and I think Party for Socialism and Liberation later, and just really tremendous activist and writer. And like, of course I'm gonna do a tribute. I mean, as soon as I saw it, I posted it to Facebook. I was like, and I thought, oh my God, like, you know, I wish I would have known, I would have said something on the show, but like,
Didn't she give you a heads up?
then like all these people were like hitting me on Facebook. I can't believe you didn't say anything about Leslie Feinberg. That is really outrageous. I'm never listening to this show again. I'm like, guys, I'm not lying. I'm sorry, but I mean, like, so.
That's
I mean,
amazing that people think that.
And the next
right.
one, you can address that for sure.
Totally,
Right.
totally,
And
I'm
probably
gonna
just
do
tell
it.
this exact story, it'd be quite funny actually.
That's true. And yeah, Leslie did not give me the heads up.
But it's. Sorry.
But I mean, what I was gonna say is, I actually love to, the irony about it is that I love to do memorial pieces. Like, I probably do more of them than any other person on KPFA. I mean, and in fact,
Well, that's
now
why
I'm like,
you're more
oh my
offensive.
God, because I've been working on a memorial to this woman named Dr. Gina Sole, who was the first chair of women's studies at SF State, who died like a month ago.
Wow.
And like, I've been working on that piece for weeks, and that I'm planning to air on December 1st. And so then I'm like, oh, well, what am I going to do? Do I put that off? But she died a month ago, and, you know, anyway. So, and I've already done all these interviews, and, you know, so, but I actually love doing these memorial pieces, and I'll tend to, because a lot of times there's sound, you know, you can get recordings of the person and stuff. Like, I'll tend to make them little features, and sometimes they work actually really, like, I can do them pretty quickly. So, like, even in this context, sometimes we do it. And you can sort of weave it in. Actually, one of the things I was going to play, and I decided not because it was really long, but at one point I did this tribute to Nora Ephron on our show when she died, and like, I got more feedback, like, I probably got more feedback from inside the station, like more people coming up to me and saying, oh, I really like that piece you did, than like any other, you know, any of the more, what I think of as the more cutting edge things I've done. But part of it was that there was so much sound out there, like, you know, it was so easy.